thought I would give some new equipment a try. Well, technically not new equipment, it's actually pretty old, but hopefully get some better video quality out of it at least. Right now I have episode 9, 7 Minutes in Heaven. I really enjoyed how they started this off, giving us Fisk backstory, pretty much everything that's happened to him since season 1. Then just brings us right up to where episode 8 left off with him meeting Frank Castle. I had a thought at this point about what if Frank knew that this guy who is supposedly the mastermind behind all this stuff, what if he knew that he was in prison and he got himself in prison, like he pretty much threw the whole trial and got himself into prison so that he could then kill the guy in prison. I feel like it kind of makes sense because we know Frank Castle doesn't actually care about like his being guilty or not guilty, or if he's in prison or not in prison or anything like that. Like, he doesn't care about himself at all, really. Another thought in this episode is that Daredevil is way more effective when he's working in the shadows, fighting bad guys and beating up on people, than what he was when he is at these fancy parties and stuff like this, working with Elektra, undercover type stuff. This street level in the shadows, just beating people up, way more what Daredevil is actually about. So Karen's storyline took a pretty big turn in this one too. A couple of things to note is another just thought that I'd had about her though is that she needs to start working with Jessica Jones. I don't know if they're gonna. I know they got like what 5 more series to even start up, and then like sequels of the other series and stuff. But her investigative stuff, and with Jessica Jones having like that's what Jessica Jones does. So I feel like they can tie those two, like Karen in with Jessica Jones, really easily. Another thing is she got Ben Urich's office in this episode, and like I said before, Ben Urich is one of my favorite characters, like minor characters. So bringing him back in that small way, even though they did kill him off in the first one, but just kind of tying him back in loosely, really kind of like I really enjoyed just seeing that. In that scene though, we did see a little bit about Karen's backstory. There was a newspaper laying there that had the title "Mystery Accident Causes Teen Fatality," and somehow the way the conversation was going, like that had to do with Karen, and somehow, so I don't know what that's about, really, honestly. So I'm hoping that they'll get us some of her backstory, something that ties where she comes into and who she is and everything. So Wilson Fisk, which we know just pretty much has control of the entire prison, pretty much just lets Frank Castle out of prison so that he can go fight the criminal underworld of like Hell's Kitchen, like single-handedly, so that when Wilson Fisk does get out of prison, he can just come in, take over without any obstacles or anybody else in his way. The Hand, I don't really know what's going on with them quite yet. They're like, looks like they're draining the lifeblood out of these kids or whatever, but I don't really know what the reasoning is. It seems kind of obvious, like an obvious answer that is draining their lifeblood out so that they can resurrect people. But I don't know, like I said, that seems kind of obvious, and I hope in a way that they're not doing that just because it is so obvious. But I don't know. I know that the Hand is like a magic type of organization or whatever, that could possibly tie in with the Doctor Strange movie that they're making. So that gets us to episode 10, The Man in the Box. Here they are trying to set up the Nelson Murdoch firm for Frank's escape. They meet with the prosecuting attorney from the trial, and she gets shot. Everybody gets shot. Well, not everybody gets shot, but it's a shootout. And Foggy gets shot. It's a whole thing. Matt kind of connects Wilson Fisk being in the same prison, and so he goes to talk to him. And then like that whole scene, I was kind of sitting there like, what is the point in this? Like, if you know that he's there at the prison, like, what do you need to actually talk to him for? But he does get what he was there for. So the night nurse comes back in this episode as kind of a major character for this episode at least. And I like how they portray her as Matt's conscious in a way. Like she talks him and is one person who can actually kind of talk sense into him and make him realize he has a real life with real people in it and all this other stuff. And I think that's a cool way to play that character. Elektra does have a pretty cool fight scene with some dude in an airport hangar that we find out is trying to kill her for Stick, like essentially a hitman for Stick. And she gets her katanas, which is a pretty cool thing for her. So it's a pretty cool fight, just all the way around. So Frank shows up to save Karen, like as she's out doing her like investigating thing, and ends up getting shot at again. So kind of find out that he's not the one actually doing all these shootings throughout the episode. Because this whole episode with all these shootings that were going on, I was kind of in disbelief myself, and they did a really good job of like leaving you in suspense, because it's hard to believe that Frank was the person killing these people. Like, they might be people that he wanted dead, but a couple of things about this that just makes you not think that it is Frank. I mean, one is that, like, he doesn't really put innocent people in harm's way. Like, he's not gonna go just have a huge shootout trying to kill who he wants to kill when there's a whole bunch of just innocent people around that are probably gonna die as well. Another thing is he doesn't exactly go after, like, regular people. Like, these people might be not model citizens, and they're not, like, the greatest people alive, and they might be somewhat of a criminal, but they're not, like, mob people. They're not, like, huge criminal organization tie-ins and stuff like this that we're being shot at in this episode. Which really just leads to, if it's not Frank Castle, then who is it? Who is trying to shoot all these people, or who actually is shooting all these people? Which gets me to my predictions. So first off, like I said, I don't know who is setting Frank up for any of this. If I had a guess, I would say it's something to do with whoever this other person is that is above the person he killed in jail. It's probably behind it in some way. Another rant there, though, is this whole thing seems to be some higher and higher chain of command. Like, every time Frank kills somebody, there's somebody above that person. And I feel like they're just starting to let this go on and on and on. I still think at the end of the season, the Hand is going to be the biggest, like, rivalry, the biggest bad guy or whatever, and whoever's involved with that. And I think Matt, Elektra, and Frank are all going to have to end up teaming together to fight them. Also, in some way, those two storylines, like, converging. Like, Frank Castle and who he's going after, and Elektra with the Hand, and that whole thing just coming together somehow. I think the end of this season, like in the very last episode, maybe the very last thing in the last episode, is going to be Wilson Fisk getting out of prison. So a couple of my predictions that I feel like did come true, a little bit at least. One is Elektra being out of the picture. She wasn't completely out of the picture, but at least her and Matt like split up and weren't working together. And we didn't really see a whole lot of her, just enough to kind of keep up with where she was and everything. The other thing is Frank being busted out of jail. Again, not exactly like I thought, with maybe Daredevil breaking him out or whatever, but he did get busted out of jail. So that kind of sort of came true as well. I'm going to claim those two things at least.